and welcome to this week's edition of the Week in Triathlon. And as the saying goes, the rain in Spain falls mainly, everywhere. As any of you that competed in last weekend's Ironman 70.3 in Mallorca can obviously attest to, is that the rain fell absolutely everywhere. And unfortunately for you guys is that there are probably twice, maximum 3 times in an entire year when the rain falls like this, and unfortunately, as I said, it coincided with the event and you guys got to bear the brunt of that. But for all of those of you that are looking at using Spain as a training base, be it through the summer or through the winter, bear in mind that these type of conditions are twice, maybe 3 times a year occurrences. For the rest of the year, you can be looking at balmy, warm, sunny conditions. And with that little bit of weather forecast behind us, let's get stuck into this week's edition of the Week in Triathlon. But before that, let's roll that intro. We start this week's edition of the Week in Triathlon with a multi-sport event that's not quite within the realms of triathlon, but trust me, especially those of you that come from a strong cycling background, if you tackle one of these events, it's sure to boost your overall triathlon performance, and I'm talking about swimrun events. And the international calendar for the gruelling OTILLO, which is Island to Island World Series, now has expanded to over 150 events worldwide. And for those of you in the UK, it arrives on the shores of the UK for the first time on the 18th of June this year, with a 45-kilometer event across the Isles of Scilly on the southwest tip of England. The original OTILLO in Stockholm is now the Swimrun World Championship and takes place on the 5th of September 2016. And all the other events on the Swimrun World calendar, on the OTILLO World Series, will all be qualifiers for the event in Stockholm, and it follows roughly the same type of qualification model as what Ironman events are qualifiers for Kona. Now, bearing in mind, you think that the 45-kilometer event in the southwest of England seems like a really short event as far as an endurance multisport event. Bear in mind that the original OTILLO, the Stockholm event, is only 56 kilometers in total length. 56 kilometers. However, year upon year, the winning time is over 9 hours. Over 9 hours for the winning team to make it through 56 kilometers. Gives you an idea of the grueling and tough nature of these type of events, and why swimrun, which is multiple swims and runs over the course of the distance, will help you in your triathlon if swimming and running are your 2 weakest disciplines. So be sure to look into that, especially if you're in the UK, with this event coming right to your shores, literally into your backyard this year. Many of you will recall the motor doping incident at the 2016 Cyclocross World Championship. It involved the Belgian rider Femke van Driesche, who had an electric motor, which is a VVAX unit commercially available, concealed in the seat tube of one of her bikes. The UCI used a magnetic resonance scanner to detect the motor, and on further inspection found a wireless Bluetooth switch hidden in her handball tape. Now, as a result of this, the UCI has banned her for 6 years and fined her 20,000 Swiss francs. However, at the same time, there's no indication of any sanction whatsoever against either her team or her mechanic. And obviously, her mechanic must have been in on the deal, because installing an electric motor through the bottom bracket up into the seat tube of a bike, including installing the battery pack there as well, is a really, really complex procedure, and not one that is normally done single-handedly by a rider without either the team or the team mechanic being able to notice anything about that whatsoever. So it'll be interesting to see what sort of sanction comes out against a team or a mechanic over the next couple of weeks. News from the world of Ironman is that the National Academy of Sports Medicine in the US is teaming up with Ironman to provide better training to coaches and personal trainers across the US. In effect, what's happening is that the National Academy of Sports Medicine will provide strength and conditioning modules for the 11-module Ironman University course. And as a quid pro quo for that, personal trainers across the US that are registered with the National Academy of Sports Medicine will be able to do the Ironman University modules as their recertification program. This is absolutely good news for triathletes across the US, because that will mean that you'll have personal trainers at most of the gymnasiums across the US that will have knowledge of the specific type of conditioning that the long-distance triathletes will be needing. Then, staying with Ironman, is that last weekend at the Ironman Mallorca was that Olympic champion Nicholas Spirig was there as a first triathlon after breaking her wrist at the World Triathlon Series event in Abu Dhabi. And she headed out there with heavy training reels on a road bike and clip-on triathlon bars, competing against, in an Ironman 70.3 event, against all the other athletes that were there on dedicated special tri-bikes with super light wheels. And with her heavy training wheels and her road bike clip-on tri-bars, she did enough to finish in second place in the Pro Women's division, just 3 minutes behind the winner, Laura Phillips. Now for a recap of last weekend's events in the world of Ironman. On Saturday, the 7th of May, there was as I mentioned earlier, the Ironman 70.3 in Mallorca, Spain. We had Laura Philipp of Germany picking up the title for the women's division, while Andreas Dritz also of Germany picked up the title in the men's division. It must be noted that this is Andreas Dritz's third Mallorca title. Then, also on Saturday the 7th of May, was the Ironman 70.3 North American Pro Championship in St. George, Utah. You had Heather Wurtel of Canada picking up the ladies' title, while Mark Bausted of New Zealand won for the men. On to Sunday the 8th of May, there was the Ironman 70.3 Vietnam. Caroline Stephan of Switzerland won for the women, while Cyril Vinot of France won for the men. This coming weekend, you have only one event to be looking forward to, and that's on Saturday the 14th of May with the Ironman North American Championship, and that's taking place in the Woodlands, Texas. That's obviously within the USA. Now onto the news, or should I say the lack of news from the Challenge family. Last weekend there were 2 Challenge family events, and there are no race reports. There are not even any results available online for either of these 2 events. This takes us to 4 consecutive Challenge family events under what seems to be a complete media blackout. So rest assured that the Week in Triathlon this coming week is going to be making contact with the Challenge family and finding out if there's any way that the Week in Triathlon and the Challenge family can come to some sort of a collaborative arrangement whereby I can bring news of Challenge family events to you in each of these weekly episodes. As far as last weekend, as I mentioned, the 2 events, there was the Half Challenge Taiwan and the Half Challenge in Rimini, Italy. As far as both of those events, no results, no reports whatsoever available. As far as this coming weekend is concerned, no Challenge family events happening this coming weekend. We've got another week to wait before there'll be another Challenge family event. Now for the world of Xterra. The big news is that the Spaniard Roger Serrano handed 3-time world champion Ruben Razafa his first loss on the European Tour since he returned to Xterra at the start of 2013. It was also Razafa's third loss across the entire Xterra World Tour. That includes the World Championship events. Only his third loss in 4 years, which makes it such an even more dramatic victory for Serrano. In the post-race interview, just after crossing the finish line, Serrano, who always has the fastest swim, said that he had difficulty focusing on his own race because across the entire race he was always concerned how far back was Razafa, how fast was Razafa catching him up, and in the end he had to wait all the way until after he'd crossed the finish line winning the event to discover exactly how far back that was when Ruzafa crossed less than a minute behind. As far as last weekend was concerned, there were 3 exterior events worldwide, 1 each on the Asia Pacific, European and Pan American continental tours. And as far as those events are concerned, all 3 took place on Saturday the 7th of May. In Malaysia, you had Jackie Slack of Great Britain winning for the women, while Ben Allen of Australia winning for the men. Brilliant result for the 2 of them shortly after they became officially engaged to be married. Then, as far as exterior Greece is concerned, Helena Erbanova, the reigning European Tour champion, won for the ladies, while reigning European Tour champion Roger Serrano picked up his 2nd victory in a row by ousting Ruben Ruzafa to win for the men. While across on the Pan American Tour with exterior Brazil, 0 results available at the time of going to press. As far as the coming weekend is concerned, 1 event to be looking forward to, and that's on Saturday the 14th of May, and that's going to be Xterra Tahiti. And finally, onto the world of the ITU. In May 2014, the Olympic qualification ranking started in Yokohama. This coming weekend with the World Triathlon Series Yokohama, that will mark the end to the entire process. The USA is sending 13 elite athletes to Yokohama this year. Of those 13, only Gwen Jorgensen is guaranteed of a spot by the ITU. The remaining 12 elites from the USA will be battling it out for the remaining 5 slots for Rio. Although this can be reduced if the USA don't perform well enough to be allocated a 3-man team for Rio. If that 3-man team for Rio is reduced to a 2-man team for Rio, that means that the 6 American athletes that are battling it out currently for the 3 men's places will be reduced to battling it out for 2 men's places. The same way within the women's event, you've got 7 athletes there, including Gwen Jorgensen. The remaining 6 besides Gwen are battling it out in Yokohama for 2 slots for Rio, which will make, even within Team USA, a really exciting race to watch. Still with Rio and the Olympic Games, and touching on something that I reported on a couple of months back, is an article that appeared just this week in the New York Times, and that is both the triathlon events and the marathon swimming events that are taking place at the Copacabana beach. It must be noted that the raw sewage from Rio's 12 million people, and if you add to that the number of tourists that will be flocking in for the Rio Olympic Games, that number can easily go from 12 up to probably about 12.5 million. All of the raw sewage from all of those people flows into the Guanabara Bay at a current rate of about 480 Olympic swimming pools full of raw sewage per day. And the current within the Guanabara Bay carries all of that effluent straight back directly onto the Copacabana beach, and that's where the marathon swimming events are taking place, and that's where the swim leg of the men's and women's elite triathlon starts and finishes. So obviously, not only does this pose a major health risk to all of the triathletes taking part in the race, and with all of that sewage, that raw effluent that they'll be swimming through, expect to see a high number of athletes failing to finish the race, starting to become ill from swimming through that effluent, and as a result of starting to become ill, becoming dehydrated in the heat and humidity of Rio de Janeiro and not being able to make it through the run. So expect to see a high number of non-finishing athletes at Rio. It will be a case of who can survive the race rather than who can beat whoever else. But besides that, if there's any athlete out there that is stupid enough to go and pre-swim the swim course, there's a very high probability that that athlete won't even make it to the start line of the Olympic event. So any athletes out there that are watching, don't swim the swim course during race week. It'll screw up your race day, 100% guaranteed. Last weekend in the ITU, there were 2 World Cup events taking place. to help athletes rack up points for the Rio qualification process. Last week, Saturday, the 7th of May, was the ITU World Cup in OTILLO, Mexico, on a very, very hilly course. It was Yolanda Annan of Sweden that picked up the title for the women. Meanwhile, in the men's race, it was Etienne Demunch of France that won in the... On Sunday, the 8th of May, there was an ITU World Cup race in Cagliari on the island of Sardinia in Italy, on an incredibly hilly course that blew the field apart. India Lee of Great Britain won for the ladies, while in the men's race, also with the bunch shattering apart on the bike course, he had Christian Blumenfeld of Norway winning for the men. This coming weekend, the only major event taking place on the World Triathlon Series calendar is the World Triathlon Series event in Yokohama, Japan. That brings us to the end of this week's lengthier than normal week in triathlon. Be sure to share this out amongst all your triathlon friends. Thumbs up if you like the content. Any comments, questions, criticisms, feel free to post those in the comment section down below. And last but by no means least, there's a subscribe button. Subscribe, that way you get the week in triathlon next week Friday straight to your email inbox, as well as getting content that comes out on a daily basis relating to matters triathlon, relating to matters distance cycling, relating to matters ultra distance running. All of those come out to you, including athlete questions and answers, on a day-to-day basis between now and next week Friday's edition of the Week in Triathlon. But until we meet again, remember, stay carved up the win, and I'll see you then. Cheers.